Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to At Ease Radio. I am Jesse James Garrettson.
And I'm Kyle.
And you are listening to At Ease. And we have on the board Adam Bird. Morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
How's everybody doing today?
Doing pretty good. You guys?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Can't complain.
Yeah. Doing pretty good. So what's in the news?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go over the news for the day. And a lot of this is probably nothing really too breaking. But for the day, the nurse who contracted Ebola in Dallas, I believe, in Dallas, she was identified. And then she didn't earn her certificate in critical care nursing until August 1st of this year. So they put the newbie on this high-profile Ebola guy, and she ends up getting Ebola. So what was the lesson there?
So what do you think? What's going on there?
Maybe.
Who'd she piss off off the bat?
Right. Imagine being the guy who trained her to oh shit.
Whoops.
Maybe I should have been a little more specific about some things.
So what's going on? I mean, what is the symptoms of Ebola? And what is
dying?
Dying.
That's a good one.
That's a hard one.
I honestly don't know. I think some of it had to do with exterior bleeding from orifices. But
really,
I could be totally wrong about that. So that might be some flesh-eating bacteria I'm getting that confused with. I know it is a pathogen, and I was going to say that lady apparently, I mean, she might be fine. Ultimately, I guess the other lady that got cured of it, she's going to be donating her blood or something to her. So,
oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Well, it's not like she's got to go out of her way or anything. It's one other person. So, hopefully, she does get taken care of, and she survives.
Yeah.
So. I'm looking this up. Sorry, the Ebola symptoms.
Yeah,
what
I'm
are
trying to find that myself right now.
So over time, symptoms become increasingly severe and may include nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, which may be bloody, red eyes, raised rash, chest pain and cough, stomach pain, severe weight loss, bleeding, usually from the eyes, and bruising. People near death may bleed from other orifices such as ears, nose, and rectum. And apparently there's one more.
Does that takes a while for it to really kick in though, right?
I guess. It is a pathogen, so it does have to spread through your body. It has to, propagate. So some of those symptoms are just kind of generic symptoms. Let's see here. Some other ones are fever, severe headache, joint and muscle aches, chills, weakness.
My God, I think I have that now.
Yeah, it's kind of on a bad day I have that.
Talk to any veteran that's served overseas. You're talking about 99% of them right now with those symptoms.
Shit, I got Ebola.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think the VA,
with the exception of the bleeding of other body?
Can you get a VA claim for that?
Yeah,
that's what I want to know.
It's going to take about 2 to 3 years before the process goes.
You're going to have to be bleeding from the ears.
Another death waiting list you have to sit on. They're waiting for you to die. So then there was another. The other story is UN medic dies of Ebola in Germany. So it was a UN medic. I guess was probably down in Liberia or something. Yeah, it was in Liberia, and they went back to Leipzig, Germany. They were a 56-year-old man. They were diagnosed on October 6th, and I guess he just died. So, and I mean, we are kind of poking fun at it a little bit, I guess. But I did read the latest death toll is over 4,000.
Really?
In Liberia, or not Liberia, but I should say West Africa. So it's all over West Africa. And that's who's identified as having died from Ebola. And then there's something to the tune of 8,000 people who currently have it there.
Wow.
And I know I saw a few good documentaries actually a while ago before this thing kind of blew up in our news, because it was kind of developing over in West Africa there. And they blamed it on eating bushmeat, they call it.
Bushmeat.
Which bushmeat, by kind of a loose definition, means that you go and you get bush animals. A lot of people eat bats, and
it's like our version of roadkill.
Yeah, kind of. So you
so you can't do that.
So you shouldn't do that. Oh shit!
Dang it. Well, there goes my dinner.
Right.
That burger was not cooked all the way through. No, it was not. No.
It sat in crock pot for 8 hours. But they cook it over a flame, and a lot of people are claiming, no, it's not the bush meat, and there's a lot of confusion with that. So, all right. So moving on from Ebola, I guess.
So, what's the cure for Ebola?
I don't know. You have to kill the pathogen, I know, and I think some of it has to do with like I don't know exactly enough about pathogenic science, but it's kind of like most viruses or something where
you gotta flush it out.
Yeah, you've gotta
go on a cleanse.
You drink some Drano or something, and
and take a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, 3 shots of Tabasco, and,
some shotgun mouthwash.
Yeah.
Packet of sugar.
Yeah, do that for 2 days and you'll be fine.
And some ginseng root.
I'd like to throw in a disclaimer right now that none of us are.
We are not medically trained. This is not.
So do not try this at home if you are suffering from the.
We do not
endorse. And if you have to file a complaint, please email info@vetsonmedia.com. Gentlemen, please carry on.
Some people, I think it just takes enough time, and you get a resistance to it. You end up fighting it or something. Could be totally wrong about that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Apparently there's experimental drugs, but there hasn't been, that many people with Ebola, so it's kind of hard to do real testing with it, apparently.
Yeah.
At least not on humans. So there was some experimental drugs I know they were talking about a while ago. This is such a story that's just kind of, it's not relatable. It's here we are. We live in the West. We don't live in Africa. One person gets it. I mean, people get polio all the time here, and we're not really even that concerned about that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I want to go look at it a different way. I mean, because one person gets it here in the United States, and the media blows.
Well,
it up.
it's huge because it's the first time someone contracted it in the U.S. The other guys, it was like, I got it in Liberia and I came home, or not came home, but I went to the U.S. and I died from it.
I'm wondering how long it's actually been around. Like, you don't really hear about it until it really stems here. I mean, this is a disease that might have been around for several years that we just.
Oh, it's been around for quite some time.
And
we knew about Ebola years ago. There was a big outbreak in Africa a long time ago when I was young. I'll look that up, maybe. Ebola history, huh? So it's a hemorrhagic fever, by the way. Ebola hemorrhagic fever, EHF. Let's see. They discovered it in 1976. So it had been around, and it was something that it was one of those viruses that moved from animals to humans. So it was first identified in 1989 when infected monkeys were imported into Reston, Virginia.
Man, monkeys are like the cause of all diseases.
And that was from the Philippines, mind you.
Damn monkeys.
Wasn't just from
West
Africa.
Brought them in a barrel. Barrel monkeys.
Barrel monkeys.
Yeah,
good one.
barrel monkeys. Monkeying around. So it's hard to relate. It's what kills more people in Africa than Ebola? Malaria. We really don't hear much about that.
AIDS.
And we could prevent that. No, Ebola kills 1 million people every year. Or not Ebola. Did I say Ebola? Malaria. Malaria kills 1 million people every year in Africa. Well, I shouldn't say it's not just Africa. It also kind of spreads into some of the other outlying third world countries. I shouldn't say even third world, but like India, for instance. They have problems with that. And that one's kind of fairly preventable and treatable. But
malaria?
Yeah. That was okay. So malaria, back soldiers and British soldiers in North Africa were given tonic water. Tonic water has quinine in it, and quinine is kind of a anti-malarial drug. I'm sure you've taken the anti-malaria pills, right? So, which make you crazy and dream all out of control. But what I'm getting is they're treatable. Well, even back then, they knew that quinine helped with stopping you from, I shouldn't say stopping, but it helped prevent malaria. And so British soldiers would have to drink tonic water, and tonic water by itself kind of sucks. So all they had to drink with it was gin. So that's where gin and tonic comes from.
Oh, really? Very interesting little fact.
It would mix the tonic water with the gin.
No clue.
I'll take a gin and tonic, and
I'm gonna get fucked up at the same time. I'm preventing malaria, so
preventing malaria.
Oh,
it's a hell.
See, now he's like, why are you drinking gin and tonic?
Yeah.
I don't want to get malaria. Hello.
Hello.
It's an anti-malarial drug.
Can you just go ahead and throw in some of those anti-malaria drugs in there?
Maybe the Ebola cure is something like that. Like, well, you have to mix Jack with Coke.
Yeah, right.
and that's the cure for Ebola, ladies and gentlemen.
Just get really fucked up.
You have to make the virus think you're dead. So you need to get blackout drunk.
You need to puke it out.
Yeah. If you shit yourself, the better. So the other big news story, Kim Jong-un reemerges after his absence. So since September 3rd, no one's seen any. And this is what's interesting about this, I think, is that they kind of point out how it's all speculation based, because we don't really get any true news or information from North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based off of what state media puts out, and the very occasional defector, if we can believe them, is the thing. So nobody had seen in state media Kim Jong-un, I mean, from September 3rd. And the last thing that he had done, he was walking around with a limp and he looked fatter. So people thought that he had gout.
Oh, wow.
But then he went and did some stuff recently and he's fatter. And there was all this speculation that, oh, well, he's out of power, because they had that big meeting a while ago, last week. Some delegates from North Korea went down to South Korea and they talked with some delegates from South Korea. And it was like the first time that had ever happened.
Wow.
And they set up a schedule to do it again in November. But they asked him about Kim Jong-un. And they're like, he's fine. Like, what else are they going to say?
Yeah.
They're not going to let on anything crazy like that. So he's back. Apparently, he didn't die. He's not out of power, supposedly. So and
he's just gained some weight.
Yeah, he's just got gout.
And he's got gout.
Which is, you can't tell your people who are starving to death that you've got the old man's, scourge. That you've got I can't remember what some of the other names for gout are, but gout comes from eating rich meats that are filled with like nitrites and stuff. So
yeah,
it's uric acid that builds up in you, and it's like if you eat at a Jewish deli too much, you'll get gout.
Really?
So, like, basically
gout.
So it's not really something they probably want to publicize, and they're starving people.
Yeah,
all over North Korea. Let's see, and then Hong Kong police dismantled protesters' site. So pro-democracy protesters face a setback when police took sledgehammers and chainsaws to the barricades where the protesters have been set up for 2 weeks. As cars passed on Queensway Road on Tuesday for the first time, the protesters vowed they would rebuild their area and put their barricades back up. So this has been going on for a little while in Hong Kong. A lot of pro-democracy protesters. It's a lot of kids, a lot of college students who, want a democratic China. So interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah,
probably won't go anywhere, but
sure,
because the Chinese are pretty hardcore about that. So
pretty happy with
in their minds, civil disobedience is still disobedience.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I wonder what, is there any what are the consequences of these? I mean, are they arresting them, or what's the?
I think the whole kind of point and purpose is that the Chinese government also has state-run media, just like North Korea. Not exactly like North Korea, but because this is kind of blown up. The thing is, the state-run media is going to say everybody loves China. Everybody in China loves China. They love the way it is. And then this is a demonstration showing, well, that's not necessarily true. A lot of people hate it. And so as more and more things progress, like I'm sure, remember when Apple caught a bunch of fire for the workers' conditions in Foxconn?
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of this outcry from the world that, China needs to, like, we have OSHA. We have protections. We've got unions, whichever way you think about that. But we have protections in place for workers out there. And in China, they don't quite have that. and regulation is dismal at best. They may have things on the books saying that you can't do things, but it's not enforced. And I mean, that's just one little issue. Well, that came to light, and then it's coming to light. Well, there's a lot of Chinese people that would like a democracy. So, and China is really kind of big on quelling dissidents. Mm-hmm. So, like for instance, Google left China a while ago because China didn't want to, or Google didn't want to play with China, I should say. China wanted the ability to block things on Google. They wanted to censor things, and Google, they didn't.
They were like, no.
Yeah, that doesn't stick with our policies of how we run our company, so they left. But that's kind of the whole point, is people are starting to see the, what do I want to say, the Orwellian side of China, the why can't I think of the word?
The
oppression. I mean, that's the word I'm looking for. Oppressive China.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's good. I mean, and China has so many people in it.
They have a lot
fact.
of
Boom. Mind blown.
Right, so there's a little fact if you didn't know.
You mean all the tea in China? So there's a lot of people there. You're right, and they're also kind of the most exporting country in the world. They export the most. So from our point of view here in the U.S., our policy, et cetera, we're not going to touch it. So as much as we want to say that people hate living in China, the Chinese don't like the way things are. They want things to be better. I mean, they are very nationalist too, by the way. They love being Chinese, but
good food,
right?
And good food.
They at the same time, we're not gonna do anything about it. We can't pressure China too much when it comes to these things. We can talk with them, but we're not going to like put economic sanctions on them.
Yeah.
We're not going to do anything like that.
We're way too dependent on them.
Yeah. And it's not even just so much a dependency. It's
we owe them a lot of money.
Yeah. We owe them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we want to keep buying things for cheap is the whole thing. So.
Right.
But and that brings up a great question of like globalization, for instance. So when a U.S. company moves to another country to set up shop and start building things for cheap, should they follow the local rules and laws, which means, paying people whatever the median wage is there, or, following the safety standards that are general practice there if there isn't any rules? Or do we bring the U.S. way of doing things? We go over there and we enforce like OSHA rules.
Right.
And we pay people what I want to say,
a fair wage.
Well, I was going to say, if you were to translate the wage into their currency,
right?
Like if you were going to pay a U.S. person, because it still comes out cheaper, is the whole point. But you translate it over what it would be like, instead of paying what the giving rate is there.
Instead of paying 50 cents an hour, you pay
like $1. So and which would be way better than working down the street. Should we do that? Is the question. Should U.S. companies do that? Well, it's entirely up to them to decide.
What do you think, Adam?
I don't know, because I'm not 100% familiar with the business laws as far as bringing a corporation or of some sort into another country. So if the home headquartered office is here, but then a lot of the times I think what you have to do is when you set up shop in another country, you have XYZ North America, XYZ Europe, XYZ, Asia. So you got those different divisions. I think they've all fall under, again, I'm not 100% sure, but I think they all fall under different rules and regulations because as far as pay and everything goes, because it's in those other countries. So I know there's certain rules because they have to pay,
well, they
tax
have to follow the host nation's rules. But
right.
What I'm getting at is most of the time those host nation rules are not nearly as stringent or as beneficial to the employees as they would be in the U.S.
So are you saying for like an example, like healthcare and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like, do we offer them healthcare and stuff like that? Yeah, why not?
Workers' comp, things like that.
But I think when you're doing that, you're getting into, now you have to find doctors that are willing to take the insurance in those countries and stuff like that. I mean, you're talking a whole nother ball game
Yeah.
there.
I think I was kind of more focused on the things that are easily controllable, like employee work conditions, for instance. So you have safety things in place.
You definitely want to better their working environment there.
I think it sets a good example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, because I work for an American country that's here
Child labor
locally
laws.
and whatever. You know, that's a big thing. I know we're up against a break, but I want to touch on the child labor laws.
Sure.
It's something that now that you bring that up, there's actually a couple of things I want to bring up to that if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Sure. It's a culture clash. I know that. So we going to go on break now? All right. So we're going to go on break. We'll be back in a few.
We're going to be back in a few. When we get back, we'll talk about child labor laws. We're also going to be talking about suicide and veterans. The VA says that there's 22 suicides a day, and
Amongst
from veterans,
vets? Okay.
amongst veterans, yeah. And so we're going to talk about that, our experiences with that, and what we can do if we're having those feelings or whatever. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. And you were listening. I'm Jesse.
I'm Kyle.
And you're listening to Addie's.
Break a 1-9. How about that bandit? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. If you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in your life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to Addie's Radio on the Vets On Media Network.
Welcome back to At Ease Radio. Before the break, we were talking about child labor laws, and Adam had some interesting, and Kyle, we were having some interesting discussion over the break about that. Pro or against? What's your? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I'd say I'm against it.
Yeah.
Meaning that I don't think we should have our kids be working. And Kyle made a point during the break, that you do that, you might end up seeing a lot of kids drop out of school and stuff like that. And we don't want that either,
Right.
So
I believe that was like the intent behind the child labor laws that we had here in the U.S. Was that it was a focus on if kids had the ability to work, most families would be willing to have them do that instead of going to school. And so there was efforts along the years to kind of force employers to not hire kids so that kids would go to school.
Right.
In other countries, it becomes a big cultural change because they didn't have child labor laws. I mean, if
Yeah.
you were old enough to work, you work because your family needs the money.
Yeah.
And so I think it kind of goes hand in hand with economics, really. If a family can support a child, then they may not need them to work, is basically, I think, what it kind of boils down to. And then that is talking about where we kind of got onto that. When a U.S. company goes overseas and they employ children, well, generally when they do, they're paying them a better wage than they're probably their parents could be even making. And you've actually helped that family
Right.
in a way if you weren't there. Because if there was no job, they might just starve to death or something. So you've actually probably improved the quality of life of a family
Right.
by giving a child a job.
Right.
So
And-
then I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, and it's like in Afghanistan. I mean, they have, 20 children because they're raising a workforce.
full
People that-
quiver, they call
you
it.
know?
Full quiver.
Yeah. Where here
Because
it's
it
like,
used to be, that like 9 out of 10 of your children would die. So
yeah.
you got to just keep having kids because otherwise no one's going to be alive there.
Yeah. And there's, in countries where maybe the education isn't as great, I guess I could see the like apprenticeship type thing, going on, like you being trained for a job.
Yeah, generally your parent would take you along to where
Yeah.
they work, and
Yeah.
or either that, or if you were in a smaller community like that where you're the butcher, for instance,
Right.
your kid's going to hang out with you because he's got nowhere else to go. There ain't no
Right.
school, so
Right.
he's going to learn how to be a butcher, and you pass that trade along.
Right. Obviously, like, yeah, I'm not for overworking kids or anything like that.
That's where I was kind of getting into when a U.S. company again goes abroad. If it's a safer working place, is it really a concern to have a child working there? If it's safe, you know?
Right.
I mean, and even then you can say too, well, if you offer education also to the kids, so they work, let's say 6 hours out of the day, and then the other 3 or something,
Learning to read or something.
yeah, you
Yeah.
teach them things. You teach them how to read. You teach them math, something like that. So in that way, I think that the U.S. could be the good guy when we globalize.
Right.
But the thing, I mean, we leave that up to companies
business.
to make that
Yeah.
decision.
Teach them English while they're sewing or something.
Right.
Right.
Just
Listen to
sorry.
listen to some
it's in the
phonics,
background,
right?
you know, but it's all sewing related terms, of course. You said earlier, like, are you for or against it? And for some reason in my head, I remember reading about somebody their perspective on like when people would ask them about abortion. Are you
Yeah.
pro-life or you or what's the other one?
Pro-choice.
Pro-choice, right? Are you pro-life or you pro-choice? And he says, well, I'm against abortion, but I'm for killing babies. Like, where do you regressive? That's what he said.
Nice.
All right, so I guess we might as well use this as a segue into we're gonna talk about suicide.
Yeah.
Which is,
Suicide, so
it's not an easy topic to broach.
it sure is not.
And I hate specifically, and we'll get into in a moment. But I just kind of wanted to say, because we veteran show here. I know in the Army, I've gotten suicide briefs all the time. And when I first came in, I thought they were better than the last few that I've gotten in the reserves.
Really?
And even though the problem's gotten worse, and the problem is that as the problem gets worse, it's a reactive thing to just kind of, well, we need to do something. Let's, just anything will work kind of. It's a knee-jerk reaction, I feel. And there isn't a lot of thought put into it. And they start coming up with acronyms, and they want you to remember the most tedious, dumbest things about suicide prevention instead of really getting at the heart of the issue. Which the heart of the issue is it varies from person to person. It's a psychological thing. And I pulled up some facts and figures from AFSP.org, which is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And so the number one cause of death in the U.S., I think, here in 2011 was heart disease. But you start going down the list, and it's all these medical, physical medical problems. And right at the bottom there's suicide. So there are some. The whole point of it is that it's considered, it's a preventable thing. Is the whole point. You can't really prevent dying from diabetes mellitus, I guess. But and then they have a little flow chart here showing the progression of suicide. So suicide rates dipped around 2000, and then they started picking back up, and they're kind of. And what's interesting about that is that it actually kind of follows the economy in a way. The economy kind of peaked around like 99, 2000, and 2001 started getting crappy again. So suicide rates started ticking back up. So there's a correlation there. I'm not saying it's a causation, but there's a correlation. Then they look at suicide rates by age, and we can get into all of that, but I think it kind of becomes immaterial at some point.
Right.
The thing is that it is an issue.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, because you had mentioned the Army briefs on suicide, and that you feel that they're not as good. And I wanted to ask what
about them?
What about them? Because my last Army suicide brief I thought was a lot more positive than the ones that were normally. Because usually they're like super depressing, where this one was like.
Yeah, like right. And the joke goes is that suicide brief made me want to kill myself.
Right.
Like I was sitting there, I just wanted to kill myself throughout the whole brief. And that's the joke. If you think suicide's funny, which I don't know, depends on the spin, I guess. But the first briefs I had were generally given by someone who was like a chaplain, was somebody who kind of dealt with this stuff often. And they would give you like their perspective on it. And then they've gotten away from that, and they said, like, here are some slides. You have to follow these slides. And the latest ones I had were kind of depressing. They weren't very, like, I feel like that should be what it is. It should be an uplifting thing. Like, the problem is that they go after what you should do, like identifying someone you think might be considering suicide, right? Compared to saying, hey, if you are considering suicide, they should be talking to who their target audience really is, which is people who are considering suicide, or maybe in the future might. It's not, they target more after the reactive or the reactionary measures that you should take, which is this person tells you they want to kill themselves. So what do you do? It's more like, hey, I feel that the opposite direction should be taken, which is if you feel like you think you want to kill yourself, then this is what you should do, not this is what your buddy needs to do.
Right.
So, I mean, I have some stories about suicide, and I know you do, Garrett or Jesse, if we want to talk about that. So,
well, what are your stories?
Stories. So, I've had some friends that had some attempts, and I remember one buddy of mine. What had happened to him is he became an alcoholic, was the whole point. And not simply saying he drank a lot, but I mean, he was dependent on alcohol. And he ended up getting a DUI, and they sent him to a rehab facility that just sucked. And he got out of there, and then he was kind of skating on, this was while I was in the military, so he was really skating on thin ice. The command really liked him a lot, but at the same time, he messed up. So he had to get an Article 15, he had to go in front of the BC, and so it wasn't good for his career, was the whole thing. He gets a letter of reprimand, and this guy was so motivated to be a lifer. He just loved being in the Army, and this was a huge blow to him. And so to help him not drink, because that was really the root of his problems, my immediate command, meaning my platoon sergeant, felt he forced me to live with him. So like, even though we all had separate rooms, me and him had a bunk together, because they knew I didn't drink, and everyone else in the platoon. Well, I mean, I drank, but I was responsible.
Right.
And but he couldn't trust anyone else in the platoon, was the sad part. So he could move us into the same room together, right? And so there were a couple times. One time he tried to take a whole bunch of pills, and it was really weird, because I remember he came back in the room one day, and I could just tell something was off, like he wasn't acting right. And so I sat there and I was talking with him, and I could tell, he's really down in the dumps. This is really bothering him. He's not right. And so, but while we were talking, I was like, man, I really got to go pee. So, and the thing they they teach you, and that I got taught from the very beginning, is do not leave them alone.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, well, shit, I gotta go pee though.
You're like, you want to go to the bathroom with me?
It's just, yeah, right. And I'm like, it's just gonna be, it's just gonna be like a minute. I'll be in and out. I'll just blast it. Won't even wash my hands. Right. So I stand up and I walk out of the room. And the moment I walk out of the room, I hear him rustling around in there. And I was shit. So I turn around and he's got a bottle of sleeping pills up to his mouth. And so I run over and I smack it out of his hand. And, and then I end up having a real long talk with him. And then the next time that this happened, this was a few months later, real down in the dumps again. He locked himself in the bathroom and he had cut his wrists up real bad. So I had to take him to the hospital, of course, for that. What ended up happening, this is where I was going with this. So he ends up getting kicked out of the Army, was the whole thing. And that was a huge blow to him because, again, he was a lifer, right?
Right.
So he moves home and I kind of stay in touch with him a little bit. At the time, we were like going NTC, we were getting ready to deploy. So I didn't really have good means of communicating, but he seemed like he was fine. He was like, well, I'm back at home with the family, things are good. And then years later, it wasn't until I was filling out an SF-86 for a security clearance. I was trying to contact him on Facebook for, character reference thing they get, for people. And his mom responds on Facebook that he killed himself like a week before or so. I think in that situation, it was just not having a good support system, He didn't think people believed in him anymore, I think.
So I want to ask a question to both of you guys. What do you think? And it's I think it's an important question. Why do you think that veterans are more susceptible to suicide than most?
I think it has to kind of do with maybe being put in unnatural situations often. And there's a bunch to it. I think there's kind of a belittling sense too when because everybody in the Army basically has a boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, and we hold, military members in the military, we hold each other to a real high standard. So it becomes a huge point of failure when you don't meet something, when you don't pass a standard, right? And so when you get out, especially being a veteran stuff, I'm jumping all over the place. Sorry. So there's that in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of not being a good soldier. And then there's also, like I said, the unnatural things that we get exposed to,
right,
which happens in combat.
That we really are working under the stress of death.
Yeah, there's
the time.
Constant stress. There'll be, even outside of combat, you're dealing with stress all the time from people, and a lot of people in the military being removed from home because it affects a lot of kids more than most. I should say the younger aged people. So it's like the first time away from home. They're not around people, and if they don't get in good with people in their unit, then you really start feeling like an outsider, and you really start feeling isolated. So that happens a lot. And I think it's just probably a culmination of all those things that makes it a huge problem.
What about you, Adam? What do you think?
I think some of it is that we get so caught up as being in the military, taking orders, and we have a routine of things, and all of a sudden when you get out or you're trying to make that transition and that routine's not there, and one bad thing happens and then all of a sudden something else happens and you're not sure how to overcome that because you feel alone. You don't feel like you have anybody to turn to. Your family doesn't really understand. Most of the time, your family members and stuff, they don't understand what you've gone through. And, you see the frustration in their face because there's some family members. I know me personally, my parents have been very supportive, but I get frustrated because they say, "Oh, why don't you just do this? Why don't you do this?" And I was like, you have no idea. Like if it was just that easy, it would be great, but they don't understand that because neither one of them have been through that. And I think you get that sense of being lost, not having anybody there. You got, you develop.
You can't identify a solution.
You have such a close bond, a brotherhood, with complete strangers. I mean, I've been out of the military 7 years, and you know, I look at the people that I served with, you know, as a family still, and I miss them very, very dearly. There's a lot of them I haven't seen in a long time, and that was like a second family to me, and I felt closer to them than I felt with a lot of my real family.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and I think once you break that bond and you get out and you're trying to move on with your life, whether you get out of the military or what have you, some people can't make that transition, and I think that's why we see the suicide rate up so high, because I think a lot of these guys feel like they don't have anybody that they can turn to. Obviously, guys like us, you know, here in this room are trying to make a difference in their lives, but it's we got to get to them and let them know that, hey, we know what it's like, we know what you're going through. That's not the solution, and you know, here's what we can do to help.
Yeah. And what do you think that we can do to help?
I think a lot of it is the fact that all of us in this room have been in theater, have been downrange, so we know what that's like. We've seen a lot of things that most people, you know, never experienced in 2 or 3 lifetimes.
I mean, I've kind of gone down that path where I started thinking about suicide myself, and what turned it around for me was again my buddies. They were all basically kind of going through the same thing, and we all just kind of let our worries go aside, just started hanging out with each other more, and just started trying to spend as much time as we can with each other when we were off. And
Yeah.
that was what did it for me.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. You know, I got you know, James, who is the other owner of Vets on Media. We serve together, so it's always nice when he you know, obviously he's deployed right now, but when he's here, you know, I'd see him once a week, so there was kind of that comfort. But I've thought about, you know, biting the bullet myself, and I'd be lying to you if I said there's probably not a week that goes by where I don't think about it. But you know, I got an 11-year-old, and I think living for him, you know, I've seen parents that have committed suicide that have children. I've seen the effects that it's had on the children, and I don't want my son to ever go through something like that. I mean, let's call suicide. Let's call it for what it is. It's a selfish act.
Yeah.
And I think no matter how hard things or how hard times get in it, you know, and how easy it would be to just wipe away, you know, all your troubles, you're causing more pain and anger for the people that are there for you, that care about you, let alone, you know, and that not just them, but your kids. What type of asshole would I have to be to do something so selfish,
Right,
and then scar my kid the rest of his life? It's not about me. I look at it as it's not about me. Damn me. You know, if I didn't have my son, I could give 2 shits of what happens to me.
You're getting into that whole thing where you're when you're in such a mindset, the logic gets skewed.
Yeah.
Well, see, and I actually take the opposite side of that.
That you're for killing yourself.
Well,
apparently,
I mean, I think that people that I want to take away the stigma of it, because I feel like there is so much pain, and it comes down to my beliefs in what happens to you after you die, and it's like the end of suffering. You're really, I think that we all come from love, and we go back into love, and so I mean, I feel like part of, and I'm not saying like go out and shoot yourself, but I feel like people who are dealing with that suicide, they're also dealing with suicidal thoughts, and I've definitely dealt with it myself. They're dealing with, well, what's everybody gonna think about me? What's it, you know, and then that's just more guilt, more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. You're worried it's going to show weakness, that it's going to make you a pariah or something.
Right.
And it's true.
Yeah. And I just feel like I feel like we're all eternal beings personally. And this will get into kind of spirituality, which we'll get into next. But
okay.
I feel like, you know, and this is a life where death is a part of it. And we're always trying to avoid death. And like death is the enemy, which is death is an
But
inevitability.
that's a great point you bring up. That I mean, innately, everyone's supposed to have a sense of survival, right? And so when you start considering suicide, it's a completely unnatural response. And so, like for instance, a rabbit gets caught in a trap. It chooses either I bite my own leg off, or I try to get out of here. It doesn't really cross the rabbit's mind to kill itself, because it's a fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
And there is no third option that you should have, is the whole point, not innately. So it's a very unnatural response to something. And generally, I think that everyone is kind of a little different in their own sense. Everyone's a snowflake, right?
Right.
So saying that, and that's what I was kind of, to bring this back full circle, the military way of instruction for suicide prevention, I feel is very, it's rigid. It just says these are the things that must happen, and it doesn't really talk too much about the healing side of things and the getting better
Right.
and that process, because it's going to change from person to person, of course. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to say that, once you hand somebody off, because that's what they make it out to be. And once you hand somebody off to, a medical provider or a chaplain or something, they'll be good then. They'll fix it.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case.
It's not always the case.
So it's
and then it just hurts. It hurts when you have friends who have committed suicide, and to think of condemning that as like an unnatural.
Well, then you start to feel guilty
and
too.
you start to feel guilty.
Like,
And
oh
I think,
shit! What I could have done something, maybe, or
right. And
if I would have just called him, I might have been able to talk to him, find out what was going on, something like that. So if you are considering this yourself, what's your recommendation?
What's my recommendation? Well, I would definitely, like what we were saying, is reach out to buddies, talk to people.
Absolutely.
Number one thing is just start to do things that feel good. Like
that, and that's what I was going to say. That was part of, I think, for me, what did it was spending time with my friends, and the other one was just kind of trying to forget about what it was like bringing me down, and then I would just try to focus on what makes me happy.
Right.
So if it was sitting around in my underwear eating Cheetos, watching porn, well then that's what makes me happy. So that's just do that then, and you'll feel better. You'll feel better, I promise.
Kyle Horner's sure way of getting yourself out of suicide.
I found the cure. I have a lot of cures here, guys. It's Jack and Coke for Ebola.
Jack and Coke.
Or like somebody that's playing video games or something. Well, just go play video games, at least for a while.
Yeah.
You'll probably just feel better.
Right.
And that's the whole stepping stone.
Right.
You got to feel better. It's the only way to get out of it.
Right.
So.
And I agree. And I think that that's not, I mean, I would never encourage anybody to do that.
To play video games?
To play video games, to commit suicide. But I think that there's so much pain there. I mean, like I said earlier, there's so much pain and guilt. And then that, oh, you can't do that. That's not the right way. That's just another thing. And if you kind of let them off the hook for that, then it starts to feel better. And like right away, they've kind of like, now my mind's free to think about things that can feel better, because sometimes it's just the path of, this is my choice in my life. And what, I don't know. That's just,
there's a lot to it. I think the number one thing is kind of just letting people know you're not doing good.
Yeah.
If that could be anything. For me, it was everyone else started telling me they weren't doing so great, that they were having problems.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, shit, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And like, so am I. And then it was just kind of this bonding experience for everybody. Like, oh, we're all up shit creek right now. Fuck everything, right?
Yeah.
So we would just go and do what we felt like doing, and that was my way out on that.
I love that.
So, but that worked for me, and I had that there, and that's where it gets sticky when people don't have that.
When people don't have it, or don't know how to reach out for it.
Yeah, and so if you don't have those good friends, if you don't have that support system, and I think that's the number one thing really, is just kind of having a good support system. You got to seek it out from somewhere. You got to find somebody, something.
Yeah. What do you think, Adam?
It's hard to do it alone.
The big thing is you got to talk. You got to let it out. The problem I think that we have is people that see somebody that's struggling with that is they got to want to change. They got to want the help.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, a lot of these guys are, F it, blah, blah, blah. Because they don't feel like somebody's there that'll listen or whatnot.
Right.
That's one of our biggest missions here, and several other organizations that I'm a part of is just letting veterans know, hey,
we are here for you.
You don't have to do it alone. I've had people call in at 3 a.m. I had no clue who these people are, let alone how they, they got the number obviously through the website and stuff. But hey, I'm thinking about this, and this. Excuse me. All of a sudden you wake up real quick, and.
But you'd stay on the line with them and talk with them.
Yeah, I was on the line with them for 2 hours, and I got him in with an organization out in his neck of the woods, and he's doing fine now. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to post a question before I ask another question. What do you think that we can do better, or the VA, or just what's a better way that we can handle as veterans? This epidemic and how reaching out and letting other veterans know that we're here for them.
It just kind of goes back to building a good veteran community, and it's kind of like seeking out other veterans, getting to know them, and just having that alone, that personal connection with people, that networking that we have, because the more it's kind of, again, it's that support system. It works a little better with the veterans because, again, it's kind of like you're going to find people who have an understanding more so than you probably just would in the general civilian population, right? So that it's calling that veteran community. It's the more in touch you are with that, then the better you make the community as a whole. So as far as other vets who are going through problems, if they have that as a resource, I know Kyle, we were in the same place around the same time in Iraq. And so he knows, he gets it. Having that alone really helps.
So what are some resources that you think are good, or some resources that you feel like should be there?
I've used in the past for people who were having problems. I set them up with the vet center, because I actually made the call to the vet center and set up the appointment for them. So I knew somebody was having some problems, and I told them, I was like, we need to get you in. And they had a big stigma about going to get like psychological help. They thought it was going to impact them negatively, that
in their career,
because they had a security clearance, and they thought they were going to end up losing their security clearance, ruining their career. And of course, that is backwards logic, because it's like, well, not getting help is going to ruin a lot more. But so, and they've changed that, by the way. So it shouldn't impact that, your security clearance. But I called into the vet center and said, look, I got somebody who's got some problems right now. Can I get them seen by somebody? He said, well, if you bring them down 10 a.m. tomorrow, we'll take care of them. Just bring a DD-214.
Yeah.
That's all it took. So I just made them go to that, and they took care of them. And they were a lot better from that. So there are places like that. I'm not necessarily advocating the vet center. The vet center was a good resource that I used, but the VA in general has those resources. They have local providers that you can go see.
What about you, Adam? Resources?
I use a friend of mine, Dr. Carrie Elk with the Elk Institute out of Tampa, Florida. She works a lot with the special operations
community.
Group, out of MacDill Air Force Base and stuff down there. And I've seen some of the testimonials of some SEALs and stuff like that. And the stuff that she does firsthand is really quite amazing. I'm not a big advocate of the VA right now, although the vet center, however, did help me out. There was a gentleman up at the Thunderbird vet center up there, Thunderbird and 101, Don, great guy, and I was with him for about 2 years, and then he moved on with his career. There are places like the vet centers that aren't necessarily tied in directly to the VA that are good. It's kind of hit or miss, but there are other organizations that are out there.
And there's private providers.
Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, there's always the hotline.
Yeah. And that I think that's the biggest thing, especially if you're feeling alone, you need to call that number.
There are crisis. My girlfriend works. She's working on her master's right now, and she's used in the past for people that she got indirectly notified about using crisis hotlines, and they will send people out to you. Actually, some of these, and the very worst thing you can do is call 911, report yourself, or walk into a hospital, something like that, because they, by law, they have to take care of you. So
I want to ask real quick before we cut off our show, what do you think happens to you when you die, and where do you think spirituality comes in all of this?
I heard that when you die, you shit yourself.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Me personally, I just think you die. I don't want to. Yeah. I'm not that spiritual or religious of a guy, and I don't really tend to talk about it too much because I don't want to offend anybody. But I don't know. I think you just die. I think that it's done and over with. It just stops.
Yeah.
So I know, right?
Nice.
Both are looking at me.
Beautiful.
All right.
Waiting for your response.
What about Reverend Bird? What does the Rev say?
And God.
Blasphemy. No, I think I'm one of those. I'm obviously I'm a Christian. I'm an ordained minister as well, and anybody that doesn't, I don't condemn anybody that doesn't have the same belief as me. What you believe is what you believe, and I respect that. What do I think happens? I think a lot of people think that when you die, your spirit goes into this, that, and you're floating around or whatever. Your spirit goes to heaven, is with there at the right hand of the Father. What have you? Do I believe in that? Yeah, a part of me believes in that. But I also am open to the belief of what other people and what their beliefs are. I think it's interesting that you take the Native American culture, they call it the spirit world, and they go into, a different form, and they come back some form of an animal or whatnot. It's everybody has the right to believe what they want to believe. And I look at beliefs, or I don't want to say religion, but for a lack thereof,
spirituality.
Thank you. Spirituality. I look at spirituality as believe in something, and if that's what you believe in that. And that's because if that's what helps you get through your day to day, and it makes you happy, then by all means, believe that. And I respect that. I think what frustrates me, and this is kind of going off topic here, but when people don't have a belief, well, I don't believe anything, or I don't do this, or I don't do that, and then they're miserable all the time. And it's like, pick something to believe. Hey, you're gonna worship pick the cow. I don't, whatever. Just believe in something, and go with it. And usually you find out that they're happier when they stick to their belief.
I used to know somebody, whenever they'd meet a real bad apple, they'd say, I'm not religious, but that boy needs Jesus.
And I think that speaks a lot to purpose, and
you need to answer the question, Jesse.
What's that?
You need to
answer the question.
Oh, what do I believe?
What do you believe happens?
Well, I think that
when you shake this mortal coil,
I kind of believe in it. Like I love it all. I'm a big spiritualist, and
it's like a universal kind of a thing.
Universal kind of thing, yeah. Okay. And I think that we're all God. And God is kind of just the space that in between energy, the space that lets us live and gives us the choices that we have, choices to do what we want to do. And so I think that because of that, we do have a choice in everything that we do, and that I think that everything really ultimately is love. It really, all of creation, it comes from, if in the beginning there was nothing, and then there was something. Like that gap, I feel like there had to be a sense of love that created that something.
I believe it was Hathaway that said, "What is love?
Right.
Baby, don't hurt me.
Baby, don't hurt me no more." And so I think that makes us eternal in a sense. I don't think that there's ever really an end and or a beginning. And I don't think that there's really ever anything that we can do wrong.
Would you look at it like dying as like a new beginning?
I would look at it as
So
just a transition into something new.
do you believe in a soul then? Do you believe that your soul moves on?
I think that I don't think it moves on. I think our soul is a part of us, and it's, I think that it's always present. It's like infinite. It's just there. Yeah. And it's
Once
like our
once
higher
it's
self.
into being, do you believe it always was, or do you believe that once it's into being, then it always is?
That's a good question. I think that because I think that we're all just extensions of God. So in that sense, I think that it always was. And
Nice.
that we're kind of come into,
So your extensions of God, now that God's in you,
yeah,
like
yeah,
all the
because
way
we're
in.
all, he's all,
All
the way
up in your
me.
guts. God's balls deep in you.
All right. Well, we're going to continue this discussion next week on spirituality, because I want to hear more about what.
Man, I kind of ruined
your-
half that. I'm sorry.
No, I think that your perspective is
It's
very
all good right up into the whole gut.
Yeah.
Really try to throw you for a loop. So
Yeah.
that was Eddie's Radio. Will be on next week, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Arizona time. I don't even know what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah,
We're talking about something fun, I'm sure.
something fun.
All right. So until then, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jesse, and you're listening to Addie's.
What's so proudly we hailed at the